Speaker, the opposition would have said many, many times that the policy choice to give a tax break to PAYE earners would have led to a rise in poverty. And that did not happen, Mr. Speaker. On the contrary, poverty declined by 40%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they would have said that when we pursued, I have them right here.
Order, please.
I have it right here. Mr. Speaker,
Order,
with
please.
the policy choices that this government undertook, the opposition at every opportunity would have used the opportunity to say whether it was the 1.5 or a market-based exchange rate or any of our major policies, Mr. Speaker, the opposition would have tried to posit that those policies would lead to a rise in poverty. Mr. Speaker, the record shows that poverty declined by 40%.
Point of order. State a point of order.
The minister asserts.
Order, please. Go ahead.
The minister asserts, and it is false, that the opposition at any point argued against a market-determined exchange rate. In fact, it was the very central plank of what was done in the period between 2013 and 2017, and he cannot, and if he does not adduce evidence that that was so, then he should withdraw it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not even going, the video evidence is there. I'm not even going to challenge that, okay? I'm not even going to challenge that. So Mr. Speaker, we will produce it, don't worry. Mr. Speaker, on the government's central fiscal tax reform in 2016 and 2017, the opposition would have said in committee, in Parliament under Hustings, that would have led to a decline, to a rise in poverty. Mr. Speaker, look at what the data suggests today, that the rate of poverty declined by 40%. And it's important, Mr. Speaker, for the Jamaican people to see the connection between deliberate policy choice, Mr. Speaker, and outcomes and results. Now, with respect to the notion, Mr. Speaker, that it was a deliberate policy choice of the government of Jamaica to allocate capital expenditure in the direction of infrastructure projects. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that policy choice would also...
One minute, Dr. Clarke. Members, please do not allow me up to the calling names. There are big people inside here. Let us respect the member in his presentation. There are ways and means, as Dr. Phillips has shown, to ask him to allow you to stand on a point of order or to speak. You cannot be boy across the floor like that. I wish to ask you to allow the member to make his presentation. Go ahead, Dr. Clarke.
Thank you very much for your protection, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, you will recall the member spoke about a confluence of events. It's the deliberate policy choice of this government, led by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, that allowed in which the government engaged in multiple infrastructure projects during 2018 at the same time, Mr. Speaker, with great criticism from the opposition, Mr. Speaker. Here is the result. Infrastructure spending on that scale, and certainly an increase in infrastructure spending on that scale, has a definite and certain impact on economic activity, on employment, and on the rates of poverty, Mr. Speaker. So as we go forward from this moment where economic recovery is going to become so important, policies matter. And the right policies, Mr. Speaker, the right policies matter even more. This is a government that has pursued policies that have resulted, Mr. Speaker, in the lowest unemployment in the history of Jamaica and in the lowest rate of poverty in 10 years, a 40% decline over 2015, Mr. Speaker. This is a government, Mr. Speaker, working on behalf of the majority of Jamaicans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.